The mental game and golf course management. So when I was competing a lot, obviously I was working harder on my game, practicing, so there was a confidence factor there that feeds into playing well. But I definitely am more zeroed in on what I'm doing versus when I'm out playing with the members or playing with buddies. Not that I'm necessarily taking more time than or not, but just much more zeroed in and aware of what I'm trying to do. Usually try to have a game plan. I'm trying to think more about, what I'm doing off the tee. Do I want to be on the right side of the hole, fairway, left side of the fairway? It's a different thought process when you're trying to shift into that tournament mode. When you're trying to shoot a good number and put a good number together, every stroke, every little decision you make matters, because it may be taking you away from an opportunity to score, or it may be creating an opportunity for you to score. So it's a little different thought process there, just a little bit more focus. And it's not that I'm not talking or not conversing with people, but I'm definitely a lot more zeroed in than when I'm playing recreationally with people. Now, even when I'm playing recreationally, I'm still out there trying to shoot a good number and play a good game of golf, and I'm gathering all the information I need: yardage, wind, the lie, things like that. Whether it's from the GPS on the card or from the, I'm still doing all those things. I'm maybe not reading the green from both sides, but I'm reading it. I'm taking that information and I'm making the best effort. But I'm also not necessarily in tournament mode. I'm trying to relax and enjoy myself, and hopefully they're help them enjoy themselves as well. But I think expectations is a big word. I think that's where a lot of us struggle. Our expectations might not necessarily be in line with what our abilities and the realities are. That's where an instructor like you, working with your students, helping them work through those, but trying to get your expectations in line with where you really are, that's going to help you make better decisions when you're on the golf course. It's going to help you understand that when something doesn't go your way, it's going to help you even that out and not get as upset about the result. But I think expectations are huge for any golfer, whether that's a high level to a higher handicap. I've talked about this a lot with young players back when I used to coach a little college golf for Ancilla. I've talked about it with our current Ancilla college coach and some of his players about, what really am I capable of? Where do I actually sit right now? And then getting my expectations to match that. If you can do that, then you can make any golfer can make better decisions about what they're capable of doing out there, and probably have better results because of that. Then the scores come down. Then you just continue to adjust that, and I think that's how you can. It's one way that amateurs can get better without even hitting a lot, without even practicing a lot. Just understanding where you're at so that it helps your decision making. So. Well, I'll talk specifically about a particular round that I had one time here, and we'll relate that into a couple different things about how fragile the mind is. Sometimes it's strong and sometimes it's fragile. So I had a round here once where, and I had no reason to believe that it was going to be anything special when I teed it up. We were playing on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon, I don't remember what. But I went out with some of the guys and ended up, ultimately what happened is I birdied holes 2 on the black front, 2 through 7. Shot 30 on the front 9. Finished the round with a 68. Still a great round, but struggled on the back 9. And we'll talk about how, when did I know that something special was happening, and then when did I know that it wasn't happening? You know, I birdied 2, and then I followed that with a birdie on 3. And at that point, I began to kind of, even though this was casual play with members, began to shift into okay, I just made 2 birdies in a row. I've got some other opportunities in front of me. Let's kind of flip the switch here and try to get into almost like a tournament mode. And ended up birding 4 more holes in a row. It was, you know, a lot of good golf shots in there, a lot of great putts in there. But I was aware enough to know something was happening. I was aware enough to kind of get into that zone for a short period of time. At that stretch, I hadn't played hardly any tournament golf in a long time. I got to, after parring the 8th hole, I got to the 9th tee, 6 under par. Shouldn't really have a care in the world, but all of a sudden, I don't know if it was nerves, I don't know what it was, but just began to think about it and made what was a really awkward, tentative swing off the 9th tee. Ended up parring the hole, but from that moment on, whatever I had was gone, just like that. And I knew that. I knew that it was, but I couldn't get back into that zone. Shot a couple over on the back nine. Still shot a 68. Great round. Was happy about that, but obviously something really special, just that quick. And I think that's something that separates. That's another, coming back to the previous point about separating professionals from amateurs, or even high-level amateurs from our more recreational. Just being able to recognize what's happening, get into that moment, and stay there. And I recognized it. I couldn't stay there. And that's just the way the game goes sometimes. So there was an event. I don't even remember what the event. I think it was one of the one-day club car tournament series at Stonehenge, and I remember playing with Kerry Hungate, and who was a good player, and not that you're playing against the player. It's an individual that you should be playing against the golf course, but he's a very good player. I knew that if I was somewhere in his neighborhood, I was probably going to be in the hunt. Anyway, we came off of the 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, I think it was the 14th hole, and I made a stupid bogey and was pretty hot and pretty upset with myself. And at that point, still only maybe 1 under, somewhere right there. And I remember it was about a 150-yard drive to the next tee through the woods. And I was riding it was a threesome. I was in a cart by myself. And I remember literally suddenly becoming aware, hey, wait a minute. You're even or 1 under par. You could make 3 birdies. You can still make 3 birdies. And I can remember I'm hitting on the steering wheel, like, come on. It's okay. Settle down. I'm literally talking to myself as I'm driving the cart and saying, settle down, you can get this back. Ended up burning, I think I ended up burning 15, 16, and maybe 18, something like that, to shoot 3 or 4 under, somewhere in that neighborhood, 67, I don't remember if they're par 70 or 71. And I remember walking off thinking that I might have just won. I remember shaking Kerry's hand and saying, you know what, that might be good enough. Well, it was good enough for a couple of groups until And I don't know, Denny Hepler will probably never see this video, maybe he will, but it was good enough till Denny Hepler came in 2 groups later. Denny had been a long-time pro as an assistant at Stonehenge and was a great player, PGA Tour player. Now owns the public facility Raccoon Run across the street, and Hep came in and shot a 65, probably one of about 1,000 of those he shot on that golf course. But that was an interesting moment. Was playing well, got upset about a bogey, became aware that, listen, this is, settle down. This is not over. You can make some birdies, and was able to do that. Most of the time, you know, when I'm emotional like that or I get upset like that, number one, I'm not self-aware enough to realize that I am and stop it. But in that moment, I was, and that comes back to even the question before about, you know, the difference between tournament golf and everyday golf. You know, I was in a tournament mode and I was able to, hey, stop. You got a chance to do something special here still. And almost did. Ended up finishing second, not first, but that was kind of an interesting moment.
Now, here's a few tips and some information about how you can maximize your drives. It's all about angle of attack and using the proper tilt. Your angle of attack is the approach path, or the angle of the approach path, as your club approaches the ball. So, for an iron, for instance, with the ball on the ground, we want to have a negative attack angle. In other words, the club is going to be coming down until it strikes the ball, takes a divot, and then it will start its upward path. If we use that same type of a path for a driver, you'll obviously see that the club coming down is going to, in this case, teed really high, but even if it was teed normal height, you would see that it would come and hit it off the top of the club. So angle of attack for your driver needs to be positive, or on this side of the stroke. So the club is going to bottom out and approach it from a positive or an ascending arc up to strike the ball. Now we do that because that maximizes distance. And we'll talk about launch angle and spin rates in our future discussions about your driver. But initially we want to see what affects your angle of attack the most. And that's going to be how your body tilts at setup and what your head position and tilt will be as you strike it. First thing we want to address is our ball position to affect the proper tilt. As I stand straight, I'm going to at least have this ball forward of my head or to the left of my head. I'm a right-handed golfer. So in my case, I'm going to play it roughly right across from my left knee. A little wider stance for me because of the way I swing and my height. I don't ever want to swing and get my head forward of the ball. It's always going to stay in this position or further back. Now, next thing I got to do is get this hand on the club, and the way I'm going to do it is bend from my waist. I'm not going to bend and use my lower body. That's going to give me an imbalance. So I want a side bend. Get in my golf posture, bend to the side, and that position right there is roughly 8 degrees of bend from center. That is basically the tour average. Why does that affect my angle of attack? It allows me to bottom the club out so it rises up to it. If I were to get my head in front of the ball, I'd have to move off quite a bit, and then I'd have to swing very far up at it, and that's hard to do, and time. So we just want to set this position, left knee, head directly centered with a slight tilt, and there we are. Built-in positive attack angle, as long as we don't move our head forward on the downswing.
Here is Justin Thomas. He has about 8 degrees of tilt, and when we let's do this. Let's circle his head position and see how much it moves back. Notice his ball position is off his left knee. It looks like he's got a tilt 8 degrees, about the tour average. A little bit of motion off the ball. As he starts his downward motion, his head moves slightly forward, and then it's going to go down and back out, and he finishes well under. Now, I don't know too many people flexible enough to do that without hurting themselves, but let's look at his position at impact. His head is definitely behind his starting position, almost a full head back away. Okay? Most amateurs we see have a habit of getting their head forward of their starting position, and that makes their angle of attack negative or down at the ball and really reduces their distance. Let's look at Danny Lee, PGA Tour player, former U.S. Amateur champion. The angle isn't quite right that we can check his tilt, but let's check his head position and see what he does. And let's play this through. On the backswing, you see very little movement away. Then there's a final stretch. There's a little bit more movement in the head back to the right. And look at his head position as it moves down and back at impact. And that's a significant amount. Here's Rory McIlroy from a few years ago. Let's see how his head. Notice his tilt is roughly 5 or 6 degrees, about 5 degrees, maybe 4. Okay, you see his left shoulder here, his right shoulder there. So it's a significant drop there. Now let's look and see where his head position is as he comes into the strike. You see he lowers and then he backs his head, maybe a quarter of a head back. But what we see with a lot of amateurs is they in fact actually move their head forward, and that really reduces their angle of attack. In other words, it can even go to negative once your head gets past the ball. That means you're pushing the ball and launching it lower with higher spin. Now this is former long drive champion Jamie Sadlowski, who actually is a really good player. He has played in several tour events, and that's his, he's retired from long driving, but you can see how extreme you can get it. This is a 12-degree angle that he has of tilt, and his ball position is very far forward. I'm going to put a circle around where his head is. Very unique swing, but fundamentally really sound, just really long. Now see, he moves up and off the ball, really long. Let's see where his head position goes. He strikes it a full head back away. So you can go to extremes and be successful at it. He is launching the ball upwards on a positive angle of about 6 degrees. The difference between if he swung level at his speed, if he swung just flat level to the ground versus his 6 degrees up, is probably for him 50 yards. For someone swinging 100 miles an hour, the difference between down 5 degrees and up 5 degrees is about 25 yards a carry. Now that doesn't include any rolls, so we're talking a substantial amount. The tilt is so important to set up the correct attack angles with your driver.
Hi golfers. If you've ever experienced sore and tight shoulders, here's a way to reset the four muscles that control the shoulder blade and collarbone. To reset the four muscles, this is what I refer to as the elephant trunk. Take a chair, place your left hand on the chair, let your right hand dangle. You don't want to move the arm, you want your body to move the arm, and you want to start in a clockwise position and let your body move the arm in a clockwise position. Once you're done with about 30 seconds of that, stop it and go the other way and let your body move it in a counterclockwise position. To lengthen the four muscles that you just reset, I refer to this next one as the windshield wiper. You want to do 10 of these. You're going to put yourself right up against a wall. Your arm is going to be slightly on the wall. You're going to face the wall and you're going to come up and you're going to lean over. Try to keep everything against the wall as much as possible. This lengthens those four muscles. We've reset the four shoulder muscles, and we've lengthened the four shoulder muscles. It's easy for me to say. To strengthen those muscles, take a ball, place it against the wall, put your palm on the ball. You're going to put a light pressure so the ball doesn't fall off the wall, and you're going to do 30 seconds of counterclockwise circles, 30 seconds of clockwise. Then you're going to be perpendicular to the wall and do the exact same thing. 30 seconds in one direction, 30 seconds in the other direction. And you just strengthened those four muscles in your shoulder. And you can do that on a daily basis.
Now let's talk about those new Titleist drivers, those new Mizuno irons and wedges. But first, let's talk about why we custom fit the way we do and why we think it's important. We begin with a profile of the golfer. How much do they play? How long have they played? And what type of scores they shoot. Then we move on to the static fit, where we do measurements, height, length of arm, size of the hands, things like that. But that's not where it stops. Because a static fit isn't enough. You can have people the same height, same athletic ability, but totally different club speeds. Or you can even have them identical club speeds, and they still need different types of equipment. So we need to keep testing. Now we do that using the Mizuno Optimizer, and in doing so we can identify the exact shaft for the type of swing speed and tempo, because we want to know how that shaft loads and unloads so that we can properly fit you. A lot of places that you go just stop with the static fit. Well, that's almost like buying them off the rack. We continue testing because we want to optimize your ball flight. Now, as a player, Your job is to select the club that looks and feels the best to you. Now this is where our use of flight scope and TrackMan radar launch monitors allows us to find the exact launch angle that will optimize your distance based on your swing speed. The final step in our process is to make sure that not only do you have a driver that fits, or a 3-wood, or we test your 7-iron to make sure that's the right shaft. We fit the full complete set. We want to make sure from the shortest chip shot to your longest drive that there are no substantial gaps in your set. Now we'd like to introduce the Mizuno line of irons, specifically the JPX 919. Mizuno has long been a producer of quality forged irons, but they've really hit one out of the ballpark with the new updated JPX 919 series. They all feature heel and toe weighting, and they're designed for scratch players all the way to high handicappers. Okay, left to right here we have the JPX 919 Tour. In the center we have the forged. You can see a lot of similarities there. And then slightly thicker is the hot metal. And of course we're able to custom fit Mizuno's traditional line of blades, which are just gorgeous golf clubs, great feeling. So if you like the feel of a forged blade, it's tough to beat Mizuno. In addition to the large selection of shafts, we have the new S18 forged wedge available in 3 types of finishes, and the new JPX 919 sand wedge. And something that's really nice that we've done with our other brands is we will have full demo sets of both the forged and the JPX, not fully complete yet until the new driver comes out this January, and also a full set of the JPX Tour. Now our latest offering from Titleist is a brand new driver, something really special and different from Titleist. It's a distance driver called the TS, which stands for Titleist Speed. The S2 version on your left compared to the S3, very similar in face-on look, and also very similar from the top look. You'll notice that like in past models, the D2 and the S2, TS2 are similar in the breadth of the head, and the TS3 compared to the D3 is a little more of a pear shape design. The TS2 is designed for those looking for a higher launch and increased MOI. Now MOI is something you'll feel because MOI is moment of inertia. When a ball is hit off center, there's a vibration. The higher the MOI, the less the vibration, so the more stability of the head through the shot on off-center hits. It has increased speed on off-center hits also. This is really very forgiving because the weight is in the back port, and the width of the head is a little wider than the TS3. The TS3 model is designed generally for people who have higher club head speed, who want a lower launch and less spin. There's an adjustable center of gravity port, as we've had in last year, the last 2 models, where you can temper a fade or a draw. We just want to keep you up to date as to what we have here in the fitting center. Great Titleist drivers and 3 woods. You'll really enjoy that. If you're in the market for either of those, give us a call. Again, Mizuno's got a great product line. We're very proud to have them. And kind of want to tease you a little bit here about what we have coming up. Probably with the longest iron that's ever been made for those of you with slower swing speeds looking for some extra distance. I'll just give you a little sneak peek to the new Big Bertha iron, but gotta keep it shut until it's time.